Hey, this is Bill. Welcome back to the channel. No phones, no television, no books, no music you did not make yourself. No shops, no internet, and absolutely nothing to scroll. So, what did people actually do for the 95,000 years before all that? Most people assume the answer is simple. Survive constantly until you die. Struggle from sunrise to sunset every single day just to find enough to eat. That answer turns out to be almost completely wrong. Because when scientists actually measured it, something awkward showed up. There are still people today who live mostly by hunting and gathering. Researchers have followed them around for decades, timing everything they do. The Hadza in Tanzania spend roughly 4 to 6 hours a day getting food. Not 4 to 6 hours of brutal labor either. That includes walking and chatting. Other foraging groups came out around the same. Roughly 20 to 40 hours a week. The average full-time worker today does 40 hours plus commuting. An anthropologist once called foragers the original affluent society, not because they had a lot of stuff, because they wanted very little of it. Now, to be fair, later researchers pushed back on that a bit. Add cooking, tool repair, firewood, and childcare, and the day gets fuller. But even the highest estimates leave hours of the day completely open. So the real question is not how they survived. It is what they did with the leftover time. The single biggest answer is almost embarrassingly simple. They talked. Enormously, constantly, far more than we do, and mostly about each other. Studies of modern conversation find most of it is social. Who did what and with whom. One theory says language grew out of grooming. Monkeys bond by picking through each other's fur, one partner at a time. That does not scale. You cannot groom 30 friends before dark. But you can talk to 5 people at once, around a fire, while doing something else. Talking is grooming that works on a crowd. That is why it is so addictive. But here's the part I love. Daytime talk and nighttime talk are completely different. A researcher recorded hundreds of conversations in a foraging community. During the day, most of the talk was practical. Plans, complaints, and arguments. Who is lazy? Who owes what? Where to go tomorrow? Normal human griping. But at night around the fire, it flipped almost entirely into stories. 4 out of 5 conversations after dark were storytelling. Fire did something no other technology has done since. It made the day longer. You cannot hunt in the dark, you cannot gather in the dark, you cannot work. So evenings became the first free time in the history of our species. And we filled it with the things that make us human. Being a good storyteller was not just fun, it was genuinely valuable. Stories carry maps, warnings, rules, and the memory of things that happened long ago. They teach you about a flood nobody living has seen. Researchers studying one group asked people who they most wanted to live with. Good storytellers were chosen far more often than good hunters. And skilled storytellers ended up with more children than everyone else. The person by the fire making things up was, biologically speaking, winning. They also made music, and this is much older than most people expect. In a German cave, archaeologists found flutes carved from bird bone and mammoth ivory. They are roughly 40,000 years old. They have finger holes carefully spaced, and they still play a musical scale. Somebody sat down, worked out where the holes go, and tuned an instrument. That is not survival, that is a hobby. And where there is music, there is dancing, clapping, and singing. Rhythm is one of the few things almost every human culture has independently invented. Then there is the art, which is genuinely staggering. In caves across Europe and Asia, there are paintings tens of thousands of years old. Painted animals in France are around 36,000 years old. A painted pig in Indonesia may be over 45,000 years old. And these are not scribbles, they show movement, muscle, and perspective. Many are deep inside caves far past where any daylight reaches, which means someone crawled through the dark with fire just to paint. There are hand stencils too. Someone put a hand on the wall and blew paint over it. Many of those hands are small. Children were down there with them. It is the oldest version of a kid drawing on the wall, and it survived the Ice Age. They also spent an absurd amount of time on jewelry. Shell beads have been found that are over 100,000 years old. Each shell had to be found, cleaned, drilled by hand, and threaded. Some of those shells were carried hundreds of kilometers inland from the sea. Nobody needs a necklace. That is hours of work spent purely on looking good, which tells you they cared what other people thought, constantly. They painted themselves too, using red ochre ground into powder. We have found lumps of ochre scratched with deliberate patterns, far older than the cave art. And then there were the children who did what children always do. Foraging children play for hours, mostly unsupervised, in mixed-age gangs. They play at hunting, at cooking, at building. Every game is a rehearsal. Nobody sat them in a classroom. They learned the entire job by copying and messing about. A lot of the day was also just quiet, fiddly, making and mending. Stone tools blunt fast. Every edge had to be resharpened again and again. String had to be twisted from plant fiber, by hand, meter by meter. Baskets, nets, bags, shelters, and clothing all had to be built and repaired. This is the invisible work. It never looks impressive, and it never stops. It also happens to be perfect for doing while you sit and talk. And they walked. Not just to hunt, but to visit. Camps split up and reform constantly. You go stay with your cousins for a month. A wide social network is insurance. When your area runs dry, you have somewhere to go. As for sleep, the myth is that they slept enormous amounts. They did not. Measured properly, foragers sleep around 6 to 7 hours a night, which is roughly the same as you without a single blackout curtain. They did nap in the heat of the day, though, which is arguably the superior system. Now, I have to be honest with you, because this is starting to sound like a holiday. It was not. This life was dangerous and often very short. Many children died young. A simple infected cut could kill an adult. There was no dentist, no antibiotics, and no way to fix a broken hip. Violence between groups was real, and a bad drought could wipe out a camp. Free time is not the same thing as an easy life, but it does flip the story we tell about progress. We invented farming, and the working day got longer, not shorter. A field has to be watched, weeded, guarded, harvested, and stored all year. You cannot walk away from a field. You can walk away from a berry bush. Farming fed far more people. It just cost every one of them their afternoons. So what did cavemen do all day? They worked a few hours, then they sat down together. They told stories, argued, gossiped, and laughed at each other. They made flutes and played them badly until they got good. They painted animals on walls in the dark and pressed their hands beside them. They drilled little shells and wore them so other people would notice. They were not bored. Boredom mostly needs a clock, and they did not have one. They had firelight, they had stories, and they had each other, which was plenty. And honestly, that is not a bad way to spend 95,000 years. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a new one. This has been Bill. See you in the next video.